All right, you're going to need your social studies book. We are on lesson 3, which is on page 382. If you do not have your social studies book, please go ahead and grab it right now. Looking down the side of the page, we know some things that we need to know, like who fought for equality and justice in our country. Many ethnic groups in our country fought for civil rights. Women even fought for equal rights. And people are still fighting today for human rights. The Civil War. The Civil War began in 1861. Now, why is it called a civil war? Why isn't it called a world war? Well, let's think about it. A world war means that there is parts of our world that are fighting. A civil war is when a war with people in one country fight each other. Okay, so in the Civil War, the North fought the South. The North and the South did not agree on having slaves. Many people in the North thought having a slave was wrong. And a slave is someone who is forced to work without any pay. A famous slave that we have heard about, we've talked about, and we're going to explore on this page is Harriet Tubman. So that's her right over here. Harriet Tubman, in 1849, ran away from her owners, Maryland Plantation. A plantation is a large farm. She went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Tubman then went back to Maryland to help other people escape to freedom. She risked her life many times, and more than 300 people escaped from slavery. So each time you come to the end of a page when you've been reading, you should be able to answer this question. It's a little different with me not being there to kind of read through the pages with you, but each time you see a question like this, you should pause and say, do I know the answer to this question? Why did Harriet Tubman risk her life? Well, she risked her life because she believed in freedom. She believed that her people and her friends and her family should not have to work without any pay. They were treated badly. Looking down here at the map, it says during the Civil War, Southern states were called Confederate states and Northern states were called Union states. Where were the border states located? Okay, so here's our South down here. So Confederate states running from Texas up to, looks like Virginia. And then you have border states. These states right here, they bordered the North and the South. Okay, so our Union, that's our North up here. These are people that did not believe in slavery. They believed that it was wrong. Down here, the South believed in slavery. They thought that that was something that was okay. Frederick Douglass. Okay, so Frederick Douglass was born in 1817 into a family of enslaved Africans. He lived with his grandmother because his mother had to work on a farm many miles away. Young Frederick was given an opportunity very, very, very few enslaved children had, and that was a chance to learn to read and write. When he read about freedom, he knew that he wanted that more than anything. So Frederick Douglass, he published this book all about being a slave. It was about his life as a slave. And then while still a young man, Douglass escaped to the North. So we're still talking about Frederick Douglass. He escaped to the North, and he continued his education and became a speaker in the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. He spoke out against slavery wherever he went. Soon he began publishing a newspaper, right? So Frederick Douglass, he published this newspaper, the North Star, and he wrote about this ending to slavery. And then in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed a document called the Emancipation Proclamation. Can you say that? We're in the Emancipation Proclamation. This is what freed many slaves. And in 1865, President Lincoln helped pass the 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. What's an amendment again? If you said that it is a change to the Constitution, then you are correct. Each time there is an amendment, a change is being made. So this amendment says that it is against the law to own slaves. Lincoln hoped to end the Civil War in 1865 would bring the country together. Still, African Americans did not have the same freedoms. They might not have been slaves anymore, but that doesn't mean that they had all of the same freedoms as everyone else. All right, again, here's a checkpoint. Can you answer this question? How did Douglass speak out against slavery? I'll give you a hint. It's right up here. Go ahead and turn the page. Equal rights for women. All right, women still didn't have the same rights as most white men either. So in 1870, soon after the Civil War, the idea of equality, meaning equal rights, if we have equality, we have equal rights, became the law for the whole country. This new law gave all people born in the United States the right to be a United States citizen. It also gave everyone the right to vote, except, that's right, women. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony believed that women should be able to vote. They had worked hard for their right, and they were unhappy when women did not get the right to vote in 1870. These women and others after them did not give up. They continued their work, and finally, in 1920, women had the right to vote. These ladies, they're called suffragettes. So this is a button here. So votes for women, June 15th. Here's looks like a picture of these women marching the suffrage for the right to vote. And then again, here's your checkpoint. How did many women's lives change after 1920? Okay, looking up right here. How did it change? That's right. Women were now allowed to vote. All right, and then right over here, civil rights. All right, we've talked about Dr. Martin Luther King and how he fought for civil rights. These are the rights to personal freedom. Everybody should have civil rights, the right to their own personal freedom. He spoke against these unfair laws, and his words made people angry, but he told his followers to remain peaceful. King was also given the Nobel Peace Prize for his work. We celebrate his birthday. It's a national holiday. And we set this aside to remember this very special person and this event. In the United States today, every person has the same rights, no matter what his or her religion or ethnic group. An ethnic group is a group of people who have the same language, culture, or way of life. Okay, here's your checkpoint. What did Dr. Martin Luther King do? I'm sure you all know. He fought for civil rights. All right, human rights. You might think that these are the exact same thing as civil rights, but our human rights are what everybody in the whole entire world, if you are a human being, has the rights to. And this is the right to speak freely, to have a fair trial if you're accused of a crime, and to be able to work. This also includes your right to have food, water, and a safe place to live. These are our basic human rights. Everybody should get food, water, and a safe place to live. People today, as in the past, work for human rights. Cesar Chavez, you read about young Cesar Chavez at the beginning of this chapter. Cesar Chavez is one of these people who fight for human rights. Mexican American farm workers were very poor, and Chavez started an organization called the National Farm Workers Association to protect these people's rights. The organization worked to get the farm workers better pay and living conditions, and today we still celebrate Cesar Chavez Day on March 31st. It honors Cesar Chavez and all of this work that he's done for these Mexican Americans in the National Farm Workers Association. Last but not least, Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the wife of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And she also made a difference as well for people living in poor conditions. Eleanor Roosevelt visited California workers, coal miners, and poor people in cities. She then wrote and spoke about what she saw. Okay, here's another question. Each time you reach the end of these reading checkpoints, you should make sure you can answer again. How did Eleanor Roosevelt help people in poor living conditions? All right, go back up to the paragraph. Well, she visited California farm workers. She wrote and spoke about all the things that she saw. When you write and speak about all the things that you see, it makes people more aware. And when people are aware, you can do something about it. All right, go ahead and pull out your social studies workbook, and you should work on page 90, reviewing each of these people that you saw and read about in today's lesson.